The voice before the void.net.
So I don't know where it was, but it was some town in a jungle, and I was there with a German guy, and we were buddies for some reason. It seems like we'd shared some time and experiences. So anyway, there was this German guy named Erich, and anyway, we needed to get out of this town because shit was going down. There was a war coming. Town was falling apart. There was an army coming in. Yeah, it's not clear. The threat was clear. The specifics of it. But so anyway, we had to get out of this town, and we didn't have a way to get out of this town. But there was this group of Germans who were going to rob this place. It seemed like it was a hospital or a school. It was some large institutional building that was mostly abandoned. And there's this group of Germans, like a dozen or more Germans, who were also in this town and were going to leave, but they were going to rob this place first. Eric and I had made this deal with the Germans that we'd help them rob this place if then they'd take us with them as they escaped from the city, because they had cars and motorcycles. And that's how they were going to leave the city. But anyway, they're going to rob this place first. And so it starts with Eric and I going into this room, and it was this big long room, and it was on one of these upper floors in this big building, because we were just going through room after room looking for I don't know, whatever was in there. I guess the idea was there was some kind of valuables or money or something in there. And we each had pistols, just automatic pistols. And we go in the room and it's empty. And we look through the room, and then we go out and we go into the next room and empty. and we're just going through these rooms. And meanwhile, these Germans are on other floors of the building going through rooms. But they were better armed because Eric and I just had these pistols. But the city is under attack. This war is coming to this city, and these Germans just wanted to rob this place on their way out. We go through, we find nothing, no people, nothing. The place looks long abandoned. And it was interesting because the dream was really kind of fun. It was moving through it was almost relaxing. It had this pace that was very comfortable going through this action. It was just kind of cool. It was like kind of a cool thing to move through. And then with Eric, my buddy, and anyway, shells are coming in to the city now, and the building we're in crumbles, and Eric and I then are separated, and there's dust now clouding the air. But we've gone through what we were going through, and we're just making our way down to the front of this building where the courtyard is, where the Germans have their vehicles. So I'm going down the stairs, and the other Germans are going down the stairs into this courtyard, and finally get to the courtyard, and Eric's not there, and I don't see him. But the thing was, it was so urgent. We have to get out of the city now, or we die. But it came down to me then. I have to move, or I'm going to die. It was a very focused, and in that way, calming thing. And so the Germans are mounting up, and they got Land Rovers or Toyota SUVs and stuff, and then a number of dirt bikes, and looking for Eric, and he doesn't come out of the building. His cars start pulling out of this courtyard. They're leaving the city. They're going to go out of town and hit the highway and go north to the border, which was the border with Indonesia. For some reason, it was Indonesia. I don't know why that was the name of the country, but it was going to be this highway trip and then cross the border into Indonesia, and it's all where the city was all jungle. So I'm just moving along with it. I have to get out of the city. There was a body on the ground in the courtyard, one of the Germans, and I picked up his rifle. And there was one guy on a dirt bike, and I come up behind him, and I just tapped on the seat twice. Just tapped, and then jumped onto it behind him. People were just getting into the vehicles. It didn't look like it was organized so much. We just escaped from the building as the building was falling down after being hit with a shell, and the whole robbery turned out to be a bust anyway, and it was just, now got to get out of the city. And so they're driving out, and people were stumbling and crushing, and then I'm just saying to the guy on the bike, go, go, go. Because we needed to go, we needed to get out of there. And so then as I'm saying, go, go, go to this guy, so he finally starts moving and drives around and leads out of this courtyard and onto the streets. And as he's doing that, past these other guys in the courtyard, and it's a jumble, people trying to get onto a vehicle and get out. And I take the rifle, and it was an assault rifle. It was based on the Armalite receiver. Do you know the American military rifle, the M16s from Vietnam, and then the ones they use now? That they're all the same. They're all based on that. It's called the receiver, and it's the part of the rifle that actually fires the shell. It's just the handle and the trigger and where the ammo goes in to the receiver, and the bolt that fires the round. And so that's what the U.S. government considers the actual weapon as far as controlling it and having licensing and all that stuff. And then you can put onto it any kind of barrel or stock or other sighting and equipment and stuff like that. It's an extremely popular weapon because it's highly customizable. It's just that receiver that's actually the weapon. And that's what all the U.S. military uses, has for decades. I've never actually used one. I've seen them used, and of course that's what they used in Vietnam, and it's still the same thing. Armalite was the name of the company that first developed it, then Colt bought it. As he's driving, I take the rifle and I pull the bolt back halfway to see if there was a round in the chamber, and there wasn't. So I pull the bolt back all the way and then drop it to put a round in the chamber. So now the weapon is loaded to fire because we have to get out of the city and it's chaos. Anyway, so he's riding the motorcycle and we're going through the streets, and there's now dust and smoke blowing through the streets. And after we leave the courtyard, there was the German other vehicles, then we get separated from them. So it's like, whatever, just go, we just gotta go. And we go through this city with people coming in the streets, and there's other vehicles and sirens and police and soldiers, and we're just going, and I got the rifle there behind him and ready to use it on whatever might need to use it on. And we go through the city and I never had to use it. We finally get to the edge of the city and get onto the highway, and the highway then is going straight north to the border with Indonesia. and it's a 2-lane concrete road constructed in big blocks, and it's partly overgrown with greenery, moss. It's got potholes and stuff, and it's not a very well-maintained highway, but it's this concrete block highway. And so we take off then on this highway going north, leaving the city behind us. And the Germans, don't know what happened to them, never see them again. And Erich, who was my buddy, and never see him again. And we going north now on this highway, and with this guy who's driving the motorcycle, who I'm not even sure if he speaks English. But we're going, and there's stuff on the highway. There's some traffic. There's refugees. There's people moving on the highway. And he would slow down for stuff, and I just keep shouting, go, go, because we just got to get to the border. And I'm behind him with the rifle the whole time. And then we come across 3 different wrecked vehicles at a space of several minutes in between. And the first one we come to, it's been exploded. I don't even know what it was. It was like a truck, seemed like. There's a lot of body parts. So there's pieces of this truck all over the highway, and there's pieces of people all over the highway. Just chunks of meat and bone and just spread all over the highway, and it's smoking. Recent, not just recent, but fairly recent. And he slows down, and again, I'm always shouting at him, go, go, go. He slows down to weave through the meat and the wreckage, and gets through it. And the whole time, of course, I got the rifle for anything that would threaten this run north to the border, because that's the only way to survive. I have to get to the border. So we get through this and keep going and going fast on this dirt bike on the highway. And the traffic thins out, and even the jungle thins out, and it's more savanna-like, still with lush greenery and pockets, but it's flat and it's more open. And we're just going down this highway. And then we come to this next vehicle, and it was similar to the last one. It seems smaller, but again, it's been exploded and it's blackened and smoking, and there's wreckage strewn about the highway. But the odd thing was there weren't bodies and parts of people spread around. Instead, there were corpses that looked like they've been buried up to their necks. So there's 3 or 4 rows of heads sticking out of the ground, 8 or so heads in each row, facing south, facing at us as we approach this wreckage. And this is just off the highway. There's these dead heads sticking out of the ground that are head and shoulders. They're attached to bodies that look like they've been just buried perpendicular to the ground, which was creepy. So the thing had exploded less recently than the last one, but still someone had to have buried these people there so that their heads are all in rows and facing south. So it was just weird. But anyway, we go through the wreckage again and just keep going north, and it's several minutes now. We keep going, and because it was a ways to the border, but it's can make it on a tank of gasoline of a dirt bike. So we keep going, and then we come to this third wreck, and it's similar to the last two again. It's maybe a smaller vehicle again, but this one is much more recently exploded, and there's actual flames on the highway and the wreckage, and it's burning, and just a few body parts around it. And so he starts weaving through the wreckage, and as we get through it and come out just about on the other side of the wreckage, there is this person then who we see there standing just beyond the north side of the wreckage, and it's a person standing upright, and his whole body is melted from underneath his eyes down to his knees. It's just this melt. His flesh is melted. So half of his face is gone, and it's all indistinguishable with his neck, his chin, everything's gone. It's just this one big wound, just melted flesh, the whole front of his body and his arms down to his forearms, and he's just standing there. And it was totally unsettling to see him and see his eyes, and he looks at us and looks at me, and his eyes are wild, and it seems like he'd just recently been wounded like that. And as we go past, then just as he gets beyond and starts accelerating the bike again, I turn back with the rifle and I aim on his head and I pull the trigger, and it was set to fully automatic, so it jumps with just the one pull of the trigger. It lets out a few rounds, and they go through his head to put him out of his misery, and then he falls, and then we accelerate off and keep going. And then I look at the weapon again to see if I could shift it from full automatic to semi-automatic, because I didn't want to fire several rounds when I pulled the trigger. But anyway, that was the only time that I fired that weapon. And we keep going, and we come to the border with Indonesia, and there's a border hut with some officers on it, and when we get up to where we can see that, then he just runs the bike into the ditch, and we each hop off and go in opposite directions into the wild and into the jungle then to cross the border, not on the highway. And so that's what I do, and I never see him again either. And I get into Indonesia, and then from there I'm safe. And that's where the dream ended. And it was this feeling that, okay, then I'd survived, I got through that, and I can get back to whatever life I'd wandered anywhere else. And it was...
What do you think about that?
Right, it was... I don't know. It was... The thing about it... I woke up and it was all just clear. Like, I just remembered the whole thing so easily.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a bad feeling. It wasn't like an exciting or thrilling feeling, but it was just... I mean, maybe pleasant? Not happy, but it was a good feeling. I don't know how to say it. It was good.
Yo, are you ready?
Am I ready? What do you mean?
Your midlife crisis dream?
Midlife crisis dream? Yeah. I guess I'm interested to see what you would think, because I don't think anything of it.
Really? You're just like, it's just like a series of events that like has no bearing on where my life is, or things that have happened in the past that could come to play out of my subconscious?
I mean, right. I mean, that's where it has to have come from, right?
Damn fucking right.
But the reason I haven't put any thought into it is that there's no emotion to it. It woke up feeling good. I mean, it was a fine thing. Yeah.
Which is awesome, because that's where you are after a lifetime of feeling acutely threatened and having relationships. Okay, so starting with Eric, you had somebody who was like a buddy, and then he was gone. And then you're just like, I don't know, we gotta leave. Like, he's not gonna be able to go forward into wherever we're going, even though it's cool. I mean, we could even call that like a college phase of life. And so then as you're going through that, you just hop on the back of this other guy's motorcycle, and you're not in control, you're just riding. You like try and get a weapon with you that has some significance in your lifetime, with weapons that your father has used, with all the connotations that has. And so you get on this motorcycle headed north, like you're going to a border, you're trying to get to a different place in your life where you're not threatened. And so I can't, like, who makes this shit up in your dreams? Like, you encounter 3 car wrecks? What? Okay, so let's identify. And the first one, there's just meat everywhere. So you had some kind of relationship where shit just blew up immediately, and it did a lot of damage, and you can still see that, and you have to ride through and acknowledge and work through that. And then so the second one is just like disturbing in another way. So we could probably chalk that up to your incident, because there's more people involved, and they're all just like facing in one direction. It's just unsettling, like you said. And then so you come to the third one. It's still fresh. It's still right there. And then you see this man, and it's everything that has threatened you before. He's melting. He has no identity. Anything except up to his eyebrow. And it's gone, and he's in misery, and he's in pain. And then you just ride past, and you take your father's weapon, and you put him out of his misery, and you cross the border into the safety of northern Indonesia. And you wake up and you feel good. That doesn't speak to where you are in your life.
One thing I've heard about dreams is that they don't have significance that they couldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
That they're directly related to whatever you were thinking about just before you went to sleep. Mm-hmm. That usually they're not dealing with broad events, they're dealing with the events of the past day.
Yo, but I've had broad event dreams,
well,
and
I think
if broad event things concern you, and you're confronting a point in your life where you're really questioning some deeper things,
right.
Then why
so
would
if
those
you
not
were
be reflected?
Right, if you're thinking about those things, then they'll be in your dream. But I wasn't thinking about my broader life.
Yeah, but you don't think that you've got...
Uh-huh.
But you don't think that your mind operates on a slightly larger scale than day to day? Like, you don't think that themes come up larger patterns emerge. And it doesn't have to be like right in front of your face all the time, but when you're in that whatever rest state, and when you are confronting your life and your choices as you are now, after the end of our relationship and after your relationships with so many other people and your decision to return to North Dakota, you can pretend to not be grappling with these larger issues, but they've been pretty central to like your identity and your life up to this point. So there's going to be some conflict or some tension as you work through that anyway. I can't believe you made it to the border on the other side.
Why?
What a great thing. It just like reinforces the great things I hear from you and about you, about where you are. Or just like seems like an articulation of that, like in all the things that you love and the ways that you're doing things and engaging. And to wake up and feel good. Like what you know from your life of suffering and anguish and the 3 car wrecks and everything that happens in between, that doesn't just happen. God, that is one hell of a dream. You're just gonna let that sit. That's like the dream. It just seems like it's on a scale and with such like pieces of significance. If you gave me a little longer, I could like piece together more about why the German nationality was important.
Yeah, actually, everyone I've met in the last month, I tell them my name and then I have to explain it as German. Because they all ask, like, "Oh, where's that from?" That's not Norwegian.
I ought to be paid for this.
Oh, jeez. The dream. I mean, of course it's the dream. It's the only dream I've remembered in years.
And that doesn't have significance to you?
I think it was just because the phone was going off. So I couldn't sleep well. Oh my gosh. Yep.
Good thing you recorded it though, because then the key is just to have you tell it in the way that you think is important and to stress the things that you think are important about the dream.
Well, they were important in the dream, you know?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And then in the retelling of it, like the things that come to the surface are the things that you pay attention to, because like a lot of other shit happens in our lives and whatever. But what you come forward with as being like the significant points of it. A man stared in the eyes of the man, transformed by anguish, burned to the eyebrows, in danger of just.
That was something.
Machine gun. You fired a machine gun, but then
Assault
not only
rifle.
did you fire the machine gun
Assault
rounds,
rifle.
then you switched it so it would only fire one shot again, because you couldn't anticipate that ever facing that much danger again. You were riding to the border. You wouldn't need that kind of power anymore. Just one shot. You were transitioning yourself out of that.
No, it was that I didn't want it to be on fully automatic when I pulled the trigger. I was expecting it to only fire one round.
Yeah, but you were so fucking done with your pain and suffering chapters of your life.
I didn't know how to operate the weapon well.
Exactly, and unconsciously unleashed a barrage.
You could be paid for it because you can pull off that whole. Oh, no, this really has significance. No, really.
I'm explaining back to you what you explained to me. I'm just synthesizing information you've presented.
It was just a ride. It was... Huh.
I just love motorcycles and three symbolic. That didn't strike you for a second. You were just like, oh, that's weird. Like,
Well, only in retrospect, only in relating it, do I know it was three. Because as I was living it or dreaming it, I didn't know there was going to be three. It just there's one, and then there was another one, and there was another, and that turned out to be all it was. And I didn't know that I was never going to see Eric again, or any of the other Germans, or any. That was just only afterwards that thinking about it is like, oh yeah, those were gone.
but you got your dream to think about.
Well, I do now, I guess.
Yeah, I can't even believe you just let that lie. You were just like, huh, funny dream.
Well, it was a nice dream. It was weird, but I like weird.